If there's one car in America that instantly sparks emotion, debate, and nostalgia all at once, it's the Ford Mustang. The moment you hear that name, you don't just think about transportation, you think about power, identity, history, and a certain kind of freedom that very few cars manage to capture. But here's the real question in 2026. Is the Mustang still worth it? Or is it just living off its legacy? Because the truth is, the car market has changed. Fast. We're in an era where electric vehicles are taking over headlines, SUVs dominate sales, and even performance cars are becoming more refined, more digital, and sometimes less emotional. So where does that leave a traditional muscle car like the Mustang? Is it still a smart buy, or is it becoming outdated? To answer that, you need to look deeper than just horsepower numbers or aggressive styling. You need to understand what the Mustang actually delivers today and whether that still makes sense for modern buyers. The Mustang story starts in 1964, when Ford introduced a car that would completely redefine the American automotive market. It wasn't the most powerful car at the time, and it wasn't the most luxurious either. But it was something new. It was affordable, sporty, customizable, and most importantly, it connected emotionally with drivers. That formula turned the Mustang into a cultural icon almost instantly. Over the decades, the Mustang went through highs and lows. Some generations were praised, others criticized. But it never disappeared. It adapted, evolved, and stayed relevant in a way that very few cars have managed to do. And today, in 2026, it's still one of the last true muscle cars standing. Now let's talk about what you actually get if you're buying a Mustang today. The modern Mustang lineup typically revolves around two main engine philosophies. On one side, you have the EcoBoost models. These come with a turbocharged four-cylinder engine designed to balance performance with efficiency. On the other side, you have the GT models, powered by a naturally aspirated V8 engine that delivers the classic muscle car experience. Starting with the EcoBoost, this version surprises a lot of people. It's not just an entry-level Mustang, it's genuinely quick. With around 300 horsepower depending on the model year and tuning. It delivers strong acceleration, especially for daily driving. It also handles better than many expect, thanks to a lighter front end compared to the V8. Fuel economy is another advantage. In the US, the EcoBoost can deliver somewhere in the mid-20s mpg combined, which is relatively efficient for a performance-oriented car. That makes it a more practical choice for someone who wants the Mustang experience without paying heavily at the pump. But let's be honest. When people think of a Mustang, they usually think about the GT. The GT is where things get serious. With a 5.0-liter V8 engine producing well over 450 horsepower in newer models, the Mustang GT delivers the kind of raw performance that defines American muscle. The sound alone is a major selling point. That deep, aggressive V8 roar is something that electric cars simply cannot replicate. Acceleration is strong, with 0 to 60 miles per hour times in the low 4-second range, depending on configuration. And more importantly, the driving experience feels alive. There's a sense of connection between the driver and the machine that's becoming increasingly rare. But performance isn't just about straight-line speed anymore. Modern Mustangs, especially from the S550 generation onward and into the newer S650 platform, have significantly improved in handling. Independent rear suspension, better weight distribution, and refined chassis tuning mean that the Mustang is no longer just a drag strip car. It can handle corners with confidence, making it more versatile than older versions. That said, it's still not a lightweight sports car. Compared to something like a Chevrolet Camaro, the Mustang often feels a bit more forgiving and easier to live with, while the Camaro tends to feel sharper and more aggressive in corners. Against the Dodge Challenger, the Mustang feels more modern and agile, while the Challenger focuses more on straight-line power and retro styling. Each has its own personality. Now let's talk about the interior, because this is an area where the Mustang has evolved significantly. Older Mustangs were often criticized for having cheap interiors, especially when compared to European competitors. But newer models have improved a lot. The latest Mustangs feature digital instrument clusters, large infotainment screens, customizable displays, and better materials overall. The design is more driver-focused now. Everything feels angled toward the driver, giving a cockpit-like experience. In higher trims, you'll find leather seats, premium audio systems, ambient lighting, and advanced connectivity features like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Still, it's important to set expectations correctly. This is not a luxury car. Even in higher trims, some materials and build quality aspects may not match premium brands, but that's not really the goal of the Mustang. It's designed to balance performance, style, and everyday usability, not to compete directly with luxury sedans. Comfort is another mixed area. The front seats are generally supportive and comfortable, especially for spirited driving. But the rear seats are tight. Realistically, they're better suited for short trips or occasional use. If someone needs real backseat space, the Mustang is not the ideal choice. Cargo space is also limited compared to sedans or SUVs, but it's usable enough for weekend trips or daily errands. Now let's talk about something that many buyers underestimate: ownership cost. Buying a Mustang is one thing. Owning it long-term is another. Insurance can be higher than average, especially for younger drivers. This is a performance car, and insurers price that risk accordingly. Fuel costs also depend heavily on which engine you choose. The GT with its V8 will consume significantly more fuel than the EcoBoost. Maintenance is generally manageable, especially compared to European performance cars. Parts are widely available in the US, and many mechanics are familiar with Ford vehicles. However, performance components like brakes and tires may wear faster, especially if the car is driven aggressively. Reliability is an interesting topic. The Mustang is generally considered reasonably reliable, especially in its modern forms. It's not perfect, and some model years have had issues ranging from electronics to transmission quirks, but overall it performs well compared to many performance cars. It's not as bulletproof as a typical Toyota, but it's far from unreliable. Now here's something people don't always talk about: the Mustang's identity crisis in the modern era. On one hand, it's trying to stay true to its roots: loud, powerful, emotional. On the other hand, it has to adapt to modern expectations, technology, efficiency, safety, and even electrification. You can already see this shift with vehicles like the Mustang Mach-E, which takes the Mustang name into the electric SUV world. That alone has sparked a lot of debate among enthusiasts. But for the traditional Mustang coupe, the mission remains clear: deliver excitement. The real question is whether that excitement still matters enough in 2026 to justify buying one over more practical, efficient, or technologically advanced alternatives. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. Because the decision to buy a Mustang today is less about what the car is and more about who you are as a driver. Choosing whether the Ford Mustang is worth it in 2026 ultimately comes down to how it fits into real life, not just how it feels during a short test drive. Because once the excitement of acceleration and engine sound settles, what really matters is how the car behaves over months and years of ownership. Let's start with daily usability, because this is where many potential buyers hesitate. Driving a Mustang every day is absolutely possible, and many people in the United States do exactly that. The visibility is decent for a sports coupe. The steering is predictable, and modern driver assistance features like blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, and lane-keeping support make commuting easier than it used to be. But it's still a low, two-door performance car. Getting in and out is not as easy as an SUV. Parking in tight spaces requires more attention. And depending on where you live, road conditions can make the ride feel less comfortable compared to a typical sedan or crossover. In cities with rough pavement, you will notice it. Ride quality is another factor. The Mustang balances performance and comfort better than older generations, but it still leans toward the sporty side. That means firmer suspension, especially in GT models or performance packages. Long highway drives are fine, but daily city driving can feel a bit stiff compared to something like a Honda Accord. Then there's weather. Rear-wheel drive is part of the Mustang's identity, but it can be a challenge in snow or heavy rain if the driver is not experienced. Good tires make a huge difference, but for people living in colder regions, this is something to seriously consider. Some drivers solve this with winter tires or by using a second vehicle. Now let's talk about technology, because this is an area where the Mustang has made big progress. Newer models feature large digital displays, customizable instrument clusters, and updated infotainment systems that feel much more modern than previous generations. The interface is cleaner, more responsive, and better integrated into the driving experience. Connectivity is solid. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard in most trims, And higher-end versions offer premium sound systems and additional customization options. There's even a growing focus on performance data displays, allowing drivers to monitor things like acceleration, lap times, and engine performance. It's clear that Ford is trying to keep the Mustang relevant in a digital world. Safety is also improved. Modern Mustangs include features like automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning, lane departure alert, and adaptive cruise control. Crash test ratings are generally good for the segment, although it's important to remember that this is still a sports coupe, not a family-focused safety vehicle. For a single driver or a couple, it's more than enough. For families with young children, it may not be ideal. Now let's get into one of the most important aspects: value. The Mustang sits in an interesting position in the US market. It's more expensive than a basic sedan, but significantly cheaper than most high-performance European sports cars. That makes it accessible, but still special. A base EcoBoost model can be relatively affordable, especially when compared to other performance-oriented vehicles. But once you start adding options, performance packages, and move into GT territory, the price climbs quickly. Fully equipped GT models can reach levels where buyers start considering alternatives. That's where comparisons become critical. Against the Chevrolet Camaro, the Mustang often wins in visibility, interior usability, and overall comfort. The Camaro feels more aggressive and track-focused, but also more restrictive in daily driving. Against the Dodge Challenger, the Mustang feels more modern and agile. The Challenger offers more space and a more traditional muscle car feel, but it also feels heavier and less refined in handling. And then there are completely different alternatives. For example, someone might consider skipping a sports coupe entirely and buying a fast sedan or even an electric vehicle. Cars like Performance EVS offer instant torque, lower running costs, and advanced tech features. But here's the key difference. They don't feel like a Mustang. And that's where emotion enters the equation. The Mustang is not just about specs. It's about how it makes the driver feel. The sound of the engine, the response of the throttle, the connection between driver and road, these are things that numbers alone cannot fully explain. That emotional factor is a huge part of why people still choose it. Now let's talk about long-term ownership and reliability again, but from a practical perspective. Modern Mustangs are generally dependable when maintained properly. Oil changes, brake service, and general upkeep are straightforward. Ford dealerships are everywhere in the United States, and parts availability is strong. However, this is still a performance car. Tires wear faster. Brakes wear faster. Fuel costs are higher, especially for V8 models. Insurance can be significantly higher depending on age and driving history. So while the purchase price may look reasonable, the total cost of ownership can be higher than expected. That doesn't make it a bad choice. It just means buyers need to go in with realistic expectations. Now, something that often gets overlooked is resale value. The Mustang tends to hold its value reasonably well, especially well-maintained GT models. Limited editions and special trims can hold value even better. However, like most performance cars, depreciation still happens and condition plays a big role. A carefully maintained Mustang will always be more attractive in the used market. Finally, let's answer the main question. Is the Ford Mustang worth it in 2026? Yes, but not for everyone. If someone is looking for pure practicality, maximum fuel efficiency, or family-focused space, there are better choices. An SUV or a sedan will make more sense in those cases. But for someone who wants a car that feels alive, that delivers real performance, that have history behind it, and that still stands out in a world full of similar-looking vehicles, the Mustang remains a very strong option. It is especially ideal for drivers who enjoy performance and sound. People who want an emotional connection with their car, buyers who don't need large back seats or cargo space, enthusiasts who appreciate American muscle heritage, and even for first-time performance car buyers, the EcoBoost offers a more balanced entry point. In the end, the Mustang continues to succeed because it offers something many modern cars have lost: character. It's not the most efficient. It's not the most practical. It's not the most advanced. But it is one of the most engaging. And in 2026, that still matters more than many people expect. So is it worth it? If you're buying with your head, maybe you'll hesitate. But if you're buying with both your head and your heart, the Mustang still makes a very strong case.